When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Hello world, how are we? Are we all okay? Episode 59 of Join Up Dots, and I've got a gentleman today, and when you listen to him talk, you will think to yourself, how enthusiastic, and it's 5 o'clock in the morning. He's actually been up for about, half hour already. So it's probably still dark where he is, but you won't hear that from his voice. So I'm gonna find out what makes him so buzzy in the morning, because it's something that we could all have. If I could bottle that, we're going to be millionaires, all of us. Well, today's guest is someone who considers himself a lifelong student. And in the online environment, he quite simply has submerged himself in the world of websites, traffic production, and content creation since an early age. He first learnt to write software when he was just a youthful 14 years old and started his first company at the age of 20. But these were all stepping stones, or dots as we call them on the show, because no matter how well your site, vision and content look, you're dead in the water without visiting traffic. And he first achieved this while he was graduating from the United States Military Academy at West Point. All freshmen were allowed to use the computers, and our guest decided to create a site on his love of hip-hop music, which slowly but steadily became the go-to place for lovers of that genre of music. So buoyed by his success and confident in his abilities, and after several false starts, in 2011 he founded Niche Advertising, that's quite hard to say, an online business that helps business in a similar niches join forces to grow their business and make their content hopefully go viral. Said in a different way, our guest is trying to connect businesses with the same demographics so they can work together to help each other's advertising campaigns go viral. Multiple businesses can join a campaign together and help each other gain huge exposure online. A real win-win for all parties, not least our guest. So the key questions are, I suppose, how did he come up with this idea? Why did he persist with working online and developing his entrepreneurial muscles when simply getting a job would have been the easier option? And where did he find the courage, support and faith in his abilities to push through the hard times to gain the success he deserves? Well, let me find out as much as I can whilst I have the chance to talk and, of course, join up dots with the one and only Christopher Mance II. How are you today, Christopher?
Feeling energized, feeling great.
You can't feel great. It's like 4:30 in the morning, and you must have been on your 9th cup of coffee. Are you always a real morning person?
On my best days, I am. I mean, I get most of the work done that I'm going to get done for the day before about 9 a.m. So I got to rock and roll early, being that I got a couple kids around here and summer's just started.
And so in the summer, I've gone through the kids. My sort of younger ones is 9 and 12, and we're just starting to slip into that phase where it's actually getting hard to get them out of bed. But in the early days, it's a totally different ball game, isn't it?
It's a totally different ball game. I mean, they're jumping out of the bed probably 6:30, 7 at the latest, so they can't wait to wake up.
Well, we used to have a telly in our bedroom, me and my wife, and we had it all sort of comfortable so we could lay down and watch telly. And we realised very early in the day that the kids were quite happy to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to come and watch telly in our room. So we had to remove everything in our room to make it the most boring environment that the kids would never want to come in. And it's kind of worked. They're more happy to lay in their own beds watching Dora the Explorer and whatever they watch. So have you trained your kids to a certain time that daddy's got his work to do, or are they just able to exist in your environment and not bother you too much?
I wish I could. I haven't figured it out. So I don't actually mind having them around because, one of the things I want to raise them to think is to think like an entrepreneur. So when they see me working and I work from home, I'm kind of implanting that in their mind that entrepreneurship is the way to go. So I always kind of have them around in the peripherals just so they can see what I'm doing and, maybe pick up some things in their subliminal so that they grow up and take the same path.
Well, one of the things with entrepreneurs is that kind of blending of home life and work life. How do you define the two, that you're not working all the time? Because it's quite easy to do that when you just, move from one seat to another and you're a workstation.
I haven't figured it out yet. So if somebody knows how to do that, let me know. So, from the time I wake up, which could be, 4 or 5 a.m. till, midnight, it's always a blended lifestyle. I'm jumping from one thing to the other and back and forth, and work never really stops for me at this phase in my life. So I would love to figure that out at some point.
It's a surprising thing, isn't it? Before I became an entrepreneur and started this role, I had this image that if I wasn't going to a 9 to 5 job, I would have freedom to choose my hours and do whatever I wanted. And I saw a phrase the other day, and it was, an entrepreneur is somebody that's willing to work 100 hours a week because he won't work 40 hours a week for someone else. And it's kind of true, isn't it?
That's absolutely true. And the motivation to be an entrepreneur sometimes starts with that idea of freedom to do what you want. But at the end of the day, it's more about, solving a problem, trying to grow something that you can call your own versus freedom. But, you know, at some phase in your life, if you do it right, you will get that freedom.
Let's go back to the time of your life that you probably had freedom, when you was a child and you could sort of do anything you wanted. Were you always growing up around the sort of Atlanta area that you're living in now?
Actually, no. I grew up, in the East Coast, the Northeast in New Jersey, and I came down to Atlanta in my early 20s. Working as a consultant for a company named Accenture, and that's what brought me here to the South.
I went to Atlanta a few years ago, and I saw the biggest fish tank I've ever seen in my life.
Oh man, yeah.
And it's ruined every aquarium I've ever been to since. I sort of walk in and go, this isn't a fish tank. You should see this one in Atlanta. It's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Well, we went there for Halloween this year, and we had a ball. I took my kids to the aquarium, and they loved it. And you're right, it's an amazing spectacle, and I've never seen an aquarium that big either.
So let's get back to your 14 years old. This was when you first started writing software. Was this something that you did because there was just computers hanging around your school, or did you have your own computer? How did you suddenly get interested in doing that?
Now, there was actually, a lot of people didn't have this opportunity, but this is like the early 90s. There was a programming class that I took in my high school in 10th grade. So I just got the opportunity. It was an elective course. I kind of just took it, kind of on a whim, and I loved it. And it just was something that came natural, just like English for me. It was almost like I always knew how to program when I walked in there. And I was one of the few people in class that got it right away. And I became someone that everybody came to for help. So it just came naturally, and I was lucky that I got that exposure in an early age.
But what was it that came naturally? Because I can't program for love nor money, and I look at people doing it and I just think that doesn't make sense. So what was it, do you think, that clicked?
It's probably the algorithm part of it. More of like the if statements, the looping, the ability to figure out what syntax you need to make something display on the screen. I naturally just remembered the right syntax for the language I was learning at the time, and I knew how to say, if this then that. That basic concept of if this then do that just came to me, without any effort.
Did that give you huge confidence for sort of proceeding to where you are now?
Not right away. I didn't get it at the time, because when I first got in college, I didn't major in computer science or software engineering or anything. So I didn't, it's a lot of people, you have this natural talent, and, it's not something that's cool or everybody else is doing. So you kind of gravitate away from it. Like, I wanted to do like economics or business. And it took me a while before it actually clicked. Like, I need to be doing programming. So
Do
yeah.
you regret that you didn't do that? Didn't do a major in programming?
Not at all, because, at the end of the day, a lot of people, there's this whole movement, and I don't know if it's like that in the UK, but here in the States, everybody's got this learn the code thing, learn the code. Everybody needs to be a programmer. And, programming is just really one piece of the whole system. You have to know the business side. You have to know the marketing side. So those early classes I took in marketing and economics, I think have helped me a whole lot. Just getting that foundation. So I don't regret that at all. I mean, you need to have exposure on both the business and tech side.
Because I've got a theory that I talk about in many of the shows that most of us know the path we should be on. We know the things that we are naturally talented at. We know the things that just come easy to us. But because they come easy to us, we're kind of dismissive of them. And we think, no, life should be harder than this. And the amount of entrepreneurs I've spoken to who are really crushing it have said that life has become so much easier for them that they still have this kind of devil and angel on their shoulder where the devil's going, it should be harder than this. And the angel's saying, no, you should be enjoying it. And they can't quite quantify the fact that they're getting paid to do something that really there's limited effort involved.
That's a beautiful thing. And, I haven't really gotten there yet. I don't necessarily pay myself at this point in my journey. So it's a daily grind for me. I'm hustling really hard to get to that point. But I do see what you're saying in terms of, for me, being a programmer early on, it wasn't something I naturally gravitated to, even though I was good at it, because I always saw, being in consulting and kind of trying to force myself to be on the business side of things, I always saw the programmers as, more or less like construction workers. They were just doing what people told them to do. So I didn't want to be the person that was told what to do. So I wanted to be on the business side. But at the end of the day, and from an entrepreneur's perspective, if you can code and you know how to program and you understand, the ins and outs of marketing, I mean, you're a real dangerous person when it comes to, starting a business. So at some point it hit me in the head that I needed to focus on this talent I had.
I think that you've had a talent. Just hearing you talk, you've got a passion. Obviously, the passion just comes out of you. But I think that you were a born hustler. Well, when you was a real young kid, were you somebody that was going around always trying to make a few quid, doing paper rounds and mowing lawns and washing cars and things like that? Have you always been a hustler?
A little bit. I definitely had a paper route when I was about 11 years old, and it's real interesting because the way it worked when you deliver papers back in the day here, you had to collect the money from the people you were delivering the papers to, and you only got paid when people paid you. So at the end of the week, every week, I had to go meet the head paper person and pay them out all the money I collected. And I only got to keep what was left after I paid my manager, if you will. So I got this early hustle in me because I noticed that people wouldn't answer their doors when the paper boy came to collect for the week. So I started having to get real creative on how to collect the money. And as an 11-year-old trying to do collections, I mean, you have to have some creative techniques to get people to open the door.
So what did you do?
I mean, you just have to go multiple times at different hours of the day. Sometimes I went with my dad there and got my dad to go to the door because if they recognized me, maybe they wouldn't answer. And I got some of my friends to go ring the doorbells instead. And then I would, come up afterwards. So you had to do a lot of different things. It's funny how people, they want to get the paper, but they don't want to pay for it. And as an 11-year-old kid, that can suck when at the end of the week you haven't done enough collections and you don't have any money for ice cream. So I figured that out real fast that wasn't the career I wanted to be in.
No, absolutely. And it is interesting with you because there's certain parts of your early life which I find it hard to connect the dots. Some people have this path that you can almost see, yes, step by step by step by step, because you were you were a sort of normal child in many sense, but then you went to the United States Military Academy. Was that something that you were following in from your father, or was that something that you'd always wanted to do? Because that is a kind of different education, isn't it, to the norm?
For sure, and it's not something I ever thought about until I was a senior in high school. And once I got recruited, I was a football player and I was a wrestler, and I got recruited there for athletics. And once I got recruited there, my dad would not let it go. So I kind of got pushed to go there by my father, and it was a great move for me. But it was definitely not something I dreamed of. It just happened.
Well, what did you learn there? I was speaking on guest one on Join Up Dots. It is a gentleman called Tom Morcus, who's making a sort of really good living online at the moment. And he went to the United States Military Academy at West Point as well. And he was saying that it really gave him the structure, it gave him the ability to get up earlier than anyone else and really sort of crack on, because in the military you have to crack on and you can't sort of like float around. But it also gave him a lot of free time when they weren't doing sort of maneuvers and stuff to hone his next part of his life. Were you already sort of working on what you wanted to do when you left the military?
I wasn't, and what West Point did for me was two things, and you hit on it just a little bit. But that ability to go further than anyone else, to take like the pain to accomplish a goal, was like one of the main things I took away. The second thing was to always know that the little things count, almost more than the big things, because it was always the smallest things that could get you in trouble, such as having your shoes shined or your bed made a certain way and your clothes folded a certain way. And there was so much emphasis on those tiny little things that most people ignore. And it's the same thing in business. So the ability to just really take pain and push through pain and focusing on the little things have been carried with me for my entire life to this point. I mean, I have not forgot those lessons.
So how do you apply that in business? Is it just small incremental gains push you forward? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of people focus on like these big things, such as having this big, beautiful website, or getting so many likes or followers in social media, like these real visible things that you can obviously see a successful entrepreneur. They have those big things, but at the end of the day, it's really the stuff that you don't see. It's some little, incremental improvement that they've made on this particular, conversion process or this funnel process that they get people to sign up, or it's the way they do onboarding for their clients, and the way they get them, that they activate them as a fan or evangelist, and they do this repeated process that nobody can see, from looking at their website or looking at their Facebook page, that's what they're doing. But it's really like this really small little nuanced thing that it took them 2-3 years, maybe 5 years to learn, that's pushed them to the level of success that they're at today.
It is a weird human trait, though, isn't it? Where logically, all of us must know that somebody does not gain huge success overnight. The overnight success story just doesn't exist. And I don't care who's out there. If you drill down into it, you find that they've just been underground for 3 years, honing their trade before they sort of explode into our consciousness. But we all benchmark ourselves against the peaks of success. We're all here looking at Christopher Mance. We're all here looking at Richard Branson's. We're all here looking at the Donald Trumps. And we think that is where I need to get to. But of course, they're only at that point because of all the small struggles, obstacles, challenges that they've overcome to get to that point. But we can't comprehend that they were ever in a different position than the one that we see them in.
For sure. I mean, it's, going back to that military analogy, it's a series of successful shoe shines. And you wake up every day, you shine your shoes, and you go through that day. And nobody wants to shine the shoes. Everybody wants the fun part. And it's really the stuff that's not really that fun that gets you to success. And you look at like Inc. magazine or TechCrunch or any online publication like that. They always cover the story after you've raised $10 million or after you've IPO'd or whatever, and they don't really go into the nuanced details of when people are ramming their head against the wall day after day and making no progress, and the unsexy part of entrepreneurship. But I mean, that's really the core of what it is. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you got to realize that it's not always going to be fun, and you're not going to always be doing what you want to be doing.
There's a book that I read recently called The Outliers or The Outliers, and it is about the 10,000 hour mark of performance and all the people that have really crushed it, from the Beatles to Bill Gates. When they sort of analyse it, they've actually performed or they've worked for 10,000 hours, which is so far beyond anything that anybody else does. And when you do the math, it's almost incomprehensible that they could actually do that amount of work to get there. But that is how they've honed their skills. That's how they've developed this latent talent they've had to the world domination that we all see.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at certain businesses, especially online businesses, you try to come up with what's your competitive advantage. What can somebody do that they can't copy? What can you do that somebody else can't copy? And really, the only thing that you can do that somebody can't copy is do something that they're not willing to do. And that really is a lot of pain and hard work. And it's doing some process that nobody else is willing to put the time and effort in to do. So that 10,000 hours is probably not 10,000 hours, sitting in a meeting room and just talking with people or having, lattes over, trying to close deals. It's probably like digging a ditch or something like that, something that nobody else wants to do.
So if we go back to your stepping stones, you're at the United States Military Academy, and then you start building a website on hip-hop music. And slowly but steadily, traffic starts coming your way. How exciting was that at that time? That really, that was the kind of first major success that you'd seen that obviously has built the confidence for you to go into your future ventures.
So this is like 96, 97, and there's not a whole lot of success stories, like big IPOs or whatever at that point. So when you're building a website or doing stuff online, you really have no dreams that this is going to be some type of business or that this is even an industry. So I was just doing it for fun, and just trying to kill time and just playing around with HTML. And when people started coming onto the site at the time, it was probably through something like Yahoo. I really don't know at the time how people got to the site. There was no like traffic strategy. It's just, you're putting up something cool. I was using one of those free websites. I want to think it was like Angel Fire or something like that. Where you get a free website. And I just started, putting lyrics up for, different songs I really like, linking to, other places where you can find hip hop music. And you had the proverbial guest book up there, and that was really the only way I knew people were coming to the site. And all of a sudden, people started signing the guest book, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was kind of hooked at that point when there was just strangers I never met were signing the guest book, and I had that, that old school little traffic counter at the bottom of the page, and that thing was clicking up, and I just fell in love with the idea that I can, type a few lines of code, something visuals on the screen, and then all of a sudden people from around the world could see it. I mean, it's very addictive.
So you didn't think at that time, right, I now need to monetize this. It was just the love of doing it.
Yeah, I didn't even think monetization probably for another, 4 years from that point. It was almost like being an artist. I don't have, a traditional artistic bone in my body. I can't sing. I can't really draw. I'm not a dancer. I would rap a little bit back in the day, but probably not, a naturally artistic skill. But when you can create something on a web page, it does kind of get that addictive dream of wanting to be able to create. It fulfills that need, and so I do have this innate desire to be able to create things that other people can consume. So in those early days, it was strictly to fulfill that desire to create, and being able to use HTML to create web pages that, you know, gave people something to consume was, uh, very fulfilling for me at the time. It still is, to be honest.
When you're in the shower, Chris, do you still rap?
Not at all, man. I'm into jazz now more than anything. You know, early on when I look at the rap that I really enjoyed when I was young, it was always, rap music that had like this jazzy riff to it. Um, and so now I've kind of evolved to be, to really get into some of the old school jazz, such as Charles Mingus. I really like Charles Mingus. So I have like a tune in my head when I'm in the shower, and I may kind of like hum to this jazzy tune that's like stuck in my head from something I was listening to in my car or in my bed or something like that.
Can you still do any rapping though? I bet you can.
Nah, maybe some stuff that from when I was a kid, I remember. But I've kind of outgrown it. I mean, the kids today, the rap they listen to today, when I turn on some of the stations here in Atlanta, and Atlanta is really, definitely the dirty South. I mean, that's what they call it here. We say, you're in the dirty South now. Not dirty in the sense of, unclean, but dirty in the sense of, like this kind of attitude. And the music today, I just don't. It doesn't really connect with me. So if I do start, rapping some particular tune, it's probably something from the '90s or even the '80s that I still just love.
You can't throw away the 80s. The 80s, I'm still dragging the 80s around with me, and I'm quite happy to say
man.
that.
It's funny because when I listen to Pandora, I'll put on like an '80s song to get, especially like the motivational music. It'll be some like some rock song from the '80s that I'll get this, this rock, and I do listen to rock too, especially like '80s rock. I kind of like '80s rock, and a lot of it's some real good motivational hits from the '80s that I'll just let Pandora take me on this journey. And so yeah, the '80s, man. And I was still a young boy in the '80s, and I probably learned mostly everything I learned in the '90s. But you're right, I dragged the '80s along with me.
You can't throw away the '80s. You really can't. So if I sort of jump back into your life again, which I like to do, is there a key dot that really was the moment that you thought, yes, okay, I can now see what I need to do. This is how I'm going to do it. Or was it just a series of very small dots that sort of linked together?
I would have to say it's a series of small dots, but I can't pick one moment where I said, hey, I need to start my own thing. It has to be a series of small dots. I mean, there was a couple books I read early on. When I was still in college, I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. I don't know if you're familiar with that body of work.
I've read it, but I didn't really get it, to be honest.
Yeah, when I was young, the main thing I got was that there's people in this rat race, and you're going to run around for your entire life till you retire, and you'll be lucky if you have a pot to piss in. And then there's these entrepreneurs who they go after this big dream. They fail a bunch of times, but at the end of the day, they have this success that allows them to have a happy retirement. And so reading that body of work, there's a couple books in the series that kind of left this implant in my mind from an early age that I didn't want to get old and have some retirement taken away from me by some big corporate company that was now bankrupt. That I'm 65 years old, depending on some corporate entity to kind of give me something or some 401k, and it's just not going to be there. So I kind of had, it was a little bit of fear, this fear of working my whole life and not having anything to show for it.
And that's really what you're drumming into your kids, isn't it? Because that's what I'm drumming into my kids. There's no job for life now. And if you can just find an angle, even if it's a subsidiary income, you've got a protection and you've got a future which people can't take away from you.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely it. I mean, you have to kind of build your own um, retirement vehicle. You have to. So, whatever it is, you have to do it yourself. You can't really wait for the government or, some type of pension or whatever to be there for you. So when you're young, I mean, that's your best chance. You have to just, go up to the plate and take a swing at the bat.
You got to have faith, as George Michael said.
Oh, for sure. Yep, gotta have faith.
I'm going to play the Steve Jobs speech now because I think it's the perfect moment to do that, because he talks about having faith and trusting your abilities and really just sort of moving forward, and not necessarily with a plan, but just to try things out and just hope that in the future things will sort of connect and you'll be able to look back and join up the dots and see how you've achieved your success. So I'm going to play these words now, and then we're just going to have a quick chat to see how relevant they are to you and how relevant they've been to your life.
All right, let's do it.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
What do you reckon, Chris?
Well, I tell you what, that particular speech and Steve Jobs in general is, I mean, they're both a big part of why I quit my job in 2012. I mean, I want to say Steve passed away in 2011, right around there, and that idea of having faith that your dots are being connected in a way that's going to lead you somewhere great. I mean, it's a very powerful concept, and I think I absolutely live by that mantra. Having faith that some random coffee meeting with somebody you meet on LinkedIn could be, in 5 years, somebody you co-found a business with that sells for, $1 billion. You just have to have faith that a series of random coffee meetings are going to lead to this magnificent place.
Because I listen to it, and I listen to it on a daily basis, and it really does have different inflections at certain times. Certain times I think he's just talking about, getting out there and doing stuff. Others times I listen to it and I think, yeah, he is talking about faith and that. But it's really just cause and effect, isn't it? If you get off your backside and you go and try to do things, and sometimes they won't work, but you change direction, and then other ones do, and then you get a little bit of speed up, and then you hit a brick wall and you turn around. Ultimately, you've got more chance of having a life that you really want than not even going on that journey. And we're not saying that every single person on here is going to go out, do stuff, and it's going to come to fruition and they're going to have a kick-ass life. That can't possibly, there's enough people on death row, for example, to make sure that's not going to be true. But you do stand half a chance, don't you, if you do start to become more proactive?
I think so, and I think the reason why there are not more, people that are living the life that they want to live is because they don't. A lot of people don't try. I mean, I think if more people tried harder and didn't give up, then we would probably see, more people doing what they want to do. But at least here in the States, I don't think they necessarily teach you that in school. That you have to be a hustler, if you will. You have to just, keep trying. You're going to fail a lot. And when it comes to that Steve Jobs speech, I want to think when he gave that commencement speech, he was either just shortly before that found out that he had some terminal illness, or he knew that he was facing facing the end of his life. And that idea of mortality, of knowing that life is short, is something that everybody needs to think about in the morning. And you got to realize that if you only have X number of days left, you don't want to waste that time. So no matter if you fail or if you succeed, you got to keep trying.
Does it frighten you that you may be on this planet and not leave your mark?
It does frighten me. I have that fear. I mean, that's a real fear for me. I mean, I don't know why, but I do want to leave my mark. And the idea that I can put all this work in and it not work, and I'm not even a footnote in history, I would say is definitely a motivator. It's a fear, but it's also a motivator for me because it's a real possibility.
Well, it is a real possibility. I read a stat, and I've quoted this stat a couple of times, that 99% of the people that have lived on this planet haven't left a mark. So only 1% have either invented something or done something that has gone down in the history books. 1%.
That's a small percentage.
And I don't know if that is a
So,
true
I mean, the
stat.
odds are against.
You know, I don't.
Yeah, the odds are
But it's
against.
scary stat. It's a scary one.
It sounds just about right. I mean, I would hate eighth grade history class if that 1% was not true. So, I mean, there's only so much that can be put in a history book. I mean, we have Wikipedia now, so I mean, I guess theoretically it's limitless, but 99% in Wikipedia nobody ever reads. So, I mean, even if you get a Wikipedia page, the chance of somebody actually caring is very slim.
Have you ever? Because I didn't realise until recently that Wikipedia could be totally rubbish. That you could actually create stuff. It was only because a colleague that I used to work with lived on this island off the United Kingdom, and this island is a really strange island because it's controlled by the military, and you actually have to show your passports to get on and off, and they test missiles, and it's just outside London. It's about 14 miles outside London, but you can actually see missiles going off, and they test them on the beach. So anyone who lives over there has to show sort of documentation when you get on and off. And he was on Wikipedia, and somebody had written a page, and he went, that's not right, and he got on there and he sort of edited it, and it struck me that I thought, blimey, a lot of this on Wikipedia that I thought was factually spot on could be rubbish.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I look at Wikipedia a lot for stuff. So, I hope the crowdsourced community knows how to edit the stuff that's not right. Um, but when you think about Wikipedia, I mean, it was a great invention.
Well, it was, isn't it? It's out there for all of us. When I was a kid, it was always you had to go down to the library all the time, and now on the online environment. Well, I was having a conversation yesterday, and really, the most powerful words in all online world, I think, is how to. And once you type in those two words, really, you can find out anything that you want.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like SEO and getting traffic, I mean, having great how-to articles, not just like the crap you may find on some of the, content farms, but having a really good how-to article that teaches something that nobody else is talking about is a great way to get traffic.
Well, you're doing a great job, and you've got this company that I can't say the name of it. It's Niche Advertising or Niche Advertising. How do you say that?
Yeah, we removed the ad because we don't think you should keep trying to add people to your audience. It's niche advertising or niche advertising, just depending on the way you pronounce that word. So we've kind of taken the two words and made a new word out of it. So it's niche advertising.
Do you ever trip up on it?
I do sometimes. And early on when I tried to talk to investors about my company, the main feedback I got was change the name. We hate the name, but I stuck with it. And because it conveys a message. I mean, the message we're really trying to send is that having a niche, focusing on a small audience of really passionate people, is the best way to promote an event, a brand, or a blog online. If you're trying to reach everybody and do the mass marketing that was popular in the 80s, it's not going to work anymore because there's just too many people and too much noise.
So how does it work then? Because I hadn't heard of it until a couple of days ago when I knew you were going to come on the show. But even in my environment, in podcasting, I looked at it and thought, wow, this could work for me. And I suppose it could work for any sort of environment, any business. Explain to the listeners your idea and how it actually works.
If you think about entrepreneurship or anybody who's starting anything, in the beginning, you always have a small audience, and it grows incrementally. So the problem is when you have an event or, you're trying to build some brand or, you're starting off with your first, 25, 30 blog posts, you're kind of shouting to the wall. You're shouting in the thin air. Nobody's listening. So, I mean, I really wanted to create a product that helped people with a small audience, but needed to reach a lot of people. So what we do at Nishvertising is we allow, entrepreneurs, event hosts, bloggers to cross promote with each other. So if you take a lot of people who have a small, passionate audience and allow them to cross promote with each other, all of a sudden you're able to reach a lot of people really fast. So the way the system works is that once you create an account, you log in, you can browse through a list of other entrepreneurs, mainly event hosts, online, e-commerce brands and blogs, and find someone who has an audience, albeit small, but an audience that you want to tap into. And the way it works is that it allows you to work with that person. And what a cross promotion actually is that it's a barter exchange. There's no money actually exchanged between two entrepreneurs. It's saying, hey, you send out this tweet for me and I'll send out this tweet for you. And the system will automate it so that there's no possibility that one of us backs out of it. And if I do this with enough people, potentially my message will start incrementally going viral. And I just keep, finding different people to cross promote with, and I keep sharing my message over and over again across these niche audiences. And, I'll start building traffic. I'll start building my leads, and my audience will start getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
So two questions. I think the first question is, so how do you personally make money out of this?
So it actually costs money to create a campaign. So we charge $7 to actually do a campaign. And a campaign it's either an email campaign or a Twitter campaign. And you create different variations of the call to action message you want to do. And you send it out through different cross promotion partners. So even though it's a barter exchange between entrepreneurs, to create a campaign it's a $7 fee, which it's a very small fee because the idea here is to build the largest database of people looking to cross promote.
Second question is, what's the kind of successes that you actually now benchmark yourself against? What advertisers have gone into your company and really exploded because of that linking that you've done?
Yeah, I mean, we're still very early in the process. We just launched last July, and we just launched Twitter cross promotions in the beginning of May 1st. So, so far we've had an e-commerce store do a cross promotion, kind of, not something you would typically think of, but they cross promoted with some marketing companies. They cross promoted with some podcasters. They also cross promoted with some people, some Etsy sellers. But they reached over 100,000 new people on Twitter by doing these cross promotions. And they only had about 4,000 followers. And so they were able to reach over 100,000 people. I don't have any specific stats on how many sales they got from that. But at the end of the day, I mean, just the ability to get your brand out there is a major win. And we're not talking about spending a whole lot of money here. So she only spent $7 and she reached over 100,000 people, and her campaign is still going on. So every day on Twitter, she's getting new mentions. She's getting retweets. Her clout score is going up if you care about your clout score, because she's getting new people following her, and it's really starting to cascade. So we have a few people that are very similar to that e-commerce seller Um, and we, like I said, we have some podcasters actually in our system doing the same thing. We have a few people selling ebooks on Amazon, and it's pretty amazing because I actually participate in the cross promotions as well. And the way our system works is that on Twitter we only send out tweets between a certain time of day, where we see like peak traffic on Twitter. And I'm sitting there, either at my computer or I'm driving, and all of a sudden my phone just starts buzzing, 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 because all these people are sending out my tweets, and I have my at username at nichevertising, and I get all these buzzes on my phone of all these new mentions and retweets, and it's pretty awesome because before I started doing nichevertising, sometimes I can go a whole week and not have anybody retweet or mention me in a tweet. And so now every day it's just my phone buzzes all day long with new at replies and retweets. And it's kind of like an invaluable tool that you can't put a measuring stick on. And it just takes time for those to lead to new customers. And I know for me specifically, when I've started cross promoting with these different entrepreneurs in my system, I've gotten like 15 new people to sign up for niche advertising from the tweets that are going out. And that's in like the last 23 days. And so what I've noticed is that these Twitter cross promotions that we started are fantastic. And the email cross promotions, it's a totally different beast because people are a little bit guarded about, sending out other, emails on the behalf of somebody else. But Twitter is this kind of this place where everybody's comfortable with, the whole idea of doing a retweet or promoting somebody else, and it's just taking off, much faster than the email cross promotions are at this point.
You love it, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, this is like kind of a dream come true for me. I mean, I've created a number of businesses, online businesses in the past that, as a software developer, one of the funny things is that you can create anything. And, sometimes business people are envious that you have this skill to code. But kind of the dirty little secret is that most software developers create code that nobody ever uses. So, early on in my career, I've created little tools and little websites that nobody ever used, and I got very little traffic, and it never picked up any steam. So I'm finally, touching on this iceberg that I think it's huge. It's still, kind of hidden, but it's the tip of this iceberg that people are starting to engage with, and it's just a matter of time before it really explodes. And it's exciting to see that early engagement and have these early users, get some benefit from something that I've created from scratch that really just came out of my head.
Well, when you had the idea, and I think this is probably your big dot, this is the moment, but when you had the idea and you thought, oh, I could do this, I think most people would go, oh, it must already be out there already, I just don't know about it. What made you follow that through? Did you investigate as much as you could to see if other people were doing it, or did you just plow in?
I did investigate. I mean, I filed a patent on the concept. Not specifically on the Twitter cross promotions or the email cross promotions, but I mean, I kind of filed a patent on the idea that everybody's audience had a monetary value to them and to other people. And so when I started off, I kind of thought I was a genius. And, I wasn't as much of a genius as I thought I was, as it turns out, because, nobody really cared. And, whenever you're starting something and you have this genius moment, after, a few weeks go by and you start working on your business plan or whatever, you start doing your, little MVP, and you realize that nobody really cares that you have this great idea, you kind of come back down to earth. So, but I do think this is my big dot. I mean, I'm super excited about the idea. There are other platforms that do, kind of what we do in a similar way, but not how I envisioned it. I mean, I think I really have something that's very unique and provides a value that is really difficult to copy.
I like the fact that you fulfilled your path, because just hearing you speak, it's not even 6 o'clock in the morning out there, and you're on fire, aren't you? You're like a blazing bonfire in the middle of Atlanta, and that passion can take you anywhere you want. You just need to have that idea. You need to have that courage, and I suppose you need to have that support. And I understand that your wife is very entrepreneurial as well. So does that make it easier for you when you're getting up at the crack of dawn, or you're working into the sort of wee small hours, but there's a lady there who kind of understands that mentality?
It's invaluable. I mean, they always tell you don't start a business by yourself. Always find a co-founder, because being an entrepreneur is so hard. If you do it by yourself, you kill yourself. So I'm pretty lucky that my wife is my co-founder. When we first met, we were starting a business together like within a week. So yeah, having her around and having her on my side, on my team, it makes everything easier.
So where are you going to take this, Chris? At the moment, it's starting to get traction. It's starting to move forward. You've got the passion for it, and I know the listeners will feel the same way as I did when I started looking into it. Even this morning, just before we came online, I saw a tweet or something that came out about a little calculator thing that you've created, and I thought, that's interesting. I'll have to play around with that. So if I'm like that, and I'm a sort of very non-techie person, then I'm sure it's going to be a tidal wave when it happens. So how big do you think this can get, and where would you like to take it?
I mean, I'd like everybody who has an event they're promoting, or some type of brand, some type of e-commerce product that they're trying to sell, or even bloggers who are just trying to get traction on their blog, to think about a cross promotion. And the idea of cross promoting with somebody, it's not a new concept, but the idea of automating it is. So, I really believe that every startup and every solopreneur, hustler around the world can get benefit from what I'm doing. And my first paid customer ever for advertising was in Australia, and the second one was in Indiana, here in the United States. And that immediately let me know that I have an international business here. This is an international concept, and mostly English-speaking countries right now are signing up. So we're looking at businesses, in the UK and India and Australia, of course, here in the United States, Canada. I really think this is going to be, one of the next big things. And it's not just doing cross promotions on Twitter. Twitter is a great place to promote. I mean, if you get it, if you know how to use Twitter, I mean, you can really generate leads for your business on Twitter. But, Twitter is just the tip of the iceberg. I mean, every day you have new social networks where people are connecting and they're promoting their businesses. I mean, whether it's Instagram, obviously Facebook, Pinterest, but there's a lot of places online where people are promoting their business. And if you can, partner with somebody else, or partner with really, an unlimited number of other businesses that are adjacent to your niche, then, the possibilities are limitless on how fast you can start growing, especially, when you look at doing it alone or going at it yourself. It can be frustrating when you're on Twitter for, 60, 90 days and you don't have 100 followers. And to get help, building that audience is, I think, something that everybody needs.
Do you know, Chris, I'm going to sign up. You've convinced me. And I'm going to, as soon as we finish this, I'm going to log on and I'm going to sign up with you. You have got a new client, sir. Awesome.
And I'll be sure to give you some free credit so that you can really test it out and give me your feedback. Because, if you're starting a business, or if you haven't started a business yet and you want to, the lifeblood of any business is users. And so early on, and I mentioned that I'm not taking a salary now, and the main reason why is early on, you need that feedback from as many users as possible to iterate and really solve the problems that they have. So, the profit motive is not necessarily the first thing you should be focused on. It should really be, getting feedback and making sure you're solving a problem that somebody wants to pay for. So, Yeah, I would love for you to sign up and tell me what you think.
And not only will I tell you what I think, I will tell the listeners what I think as well, and we'll follow the process all the way through, because I think that's going to be a win-win with these conversations that I'm having on a daily basis with people who are in the process of starting their own businesses or in the process of really crushing it and doing amazing things. There's going to be listeners out there that have just got this idea and they can't quite see the angle how to start it, but if they feel that the promotional side of it is going to be taken care of to a point, then once again they have more than half a chance of actually becoming successful.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things I've learned about entrepreneurs is that they usually have a real passion for their product, but not really a passion for promoting. And promoting is such a hard thing because nobody wants to be, tooting their own horn. And so when you can cross promote with somebody else and kind of have other people tooting the horn for you, it makes things much easier.
Because I'm like that at the moment. I love doing this. I love being behind the mic. And I've said this numerous times, but if I could walk away from all the promotion that I'm having to do in the tweets and the Facebook posts and the Pinterest and everything that's sort of taking up the time, I'd be so happy it'd be untrue. I could just turn on the mic, have these conversations, and then go and sit in the garden with a nice cold beer. But it's that kind of stuff that is taking the time. And I'll be honest, I don't really enjoy doing it.
Yeah, you make a great point. And I think cross promoting with other people does make life easier because when you can put your promotional campaigns on autopilot and you can just, like I said, you're sitting there with your little phone, your Twitter app, and you're just getting notifications and notifications of people mentioning your podcast. It feels good.
Can you do it without a phone? I don't have a phone. I'm one of the last people that have no landline or mobile phone or anything.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have a web access to the web, you can definitely use my product. And what I was mentioning on the phone is that I have the Twitter app installed on my phone, so I get the notifications when people mention my name, my Twitter name. And so my system doesn't send the notifications, Twitter does. So when you have somebody cross promoting you on Twitter and you sometimes get an email when somebody mentions you, or you get an email when somebody retweets you. And if you have the Twitter mobile app, you get, a little ding on your phone. So it's kind of cool to be sitting there and have your phone dinging.
It's annoying,
from Twitter.
Chris. It's got to be annoying.
I love it. Every time my phone dings, I get a little smile on my face when I know, somebody's retweeted
You're
me.
like a ding junkie, aren't you?
Oh, man. It's funny because like when I have these notifications, like some people, when they look at their inbox, they have like 1,000 unread messages. That's my wife. Me, I have 0 unread messages because, I'm like ADD when it comes to, notifications. I love them.
I like no notifications. I'd like Wi-Fi in a cave where I can just sit there and do me thing and not have dings every second of the day. But I do obviously wish you success with all of it because it's a great idea, and for somebody like myself, who I say earlier, I'm not the overly techie person in the world, I can see the plus points. I can see the huge plus points of this. So it's going to be a real win-win for you. And I know that the listeners out there, you're going to get business from this because it's an idea that's got legs. And with legs and passion, you can take it somewhere. So at this end of the show, this is the part where I want to send you back in time on to the Sermon on the Mic. And this is the bit when we put you as a time traveler in a room and you can have a one-on-one with your younger self. And would it be the 14-year-old? Would it be the 11-year-old doing the paper round? The guy at the military academy? What age would you choose to have a one-on-one, and what advice would you give? So I'm going to play the music, and when it finishes, you're up. This is the Sermon on the Mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the Sermon on the Mic. The Sermon on the Mic.
Okay, so yeah, I would probably I would want to talk to my 22-year-old self at the point where you're graduating college and you have these job offers on the table, Chris, ignore them all. Don't chase the money. The money is not important when you're 22. What's important is experience and getting started as an entrepreneur as soon as you can. Um, you know, me sitting here with these gray hairs and the two kids and the family and the wife and the mortgage and the car note. Um, if you take that job, you're gonna build a lifestyle that forces you to really struggle as an entrepreneur when you get older. And there is no way that you can work on the side and have a full-time job and not at some point cut off that income stream and start from scratch. So it's better to do it right now when you're a broke college student or you're a broke college graduate, and go ahead, build your business now, starting from scratch. Do not take the corporate income and go ahead and just start hustling now. Don't wait. Don't wait, Chris. Don't wait.
Did you think your younger self would have bought into that advice, though?
I think if somebody had really sat me down and gave me that conversation or gave me that talk, I would have listened. Nobody really told me that there's no way you can hustle on the side and make enough money to quit your job without taking a pay cut. I always thought that I can work in corporate America and take this salary, and at some point my side business would be able to replace my income, and I would be able to quit my job without taking a pay cut. It's not going to happen.
Well, I agree with that, because I'm poorer now than I've been for the last 30 years, probably, since I quit my 9-to-5 job. The podcast is going great, but I'm very wary about monetizing it in the wrong way. I don't want to tarnish what I'm trying to build, but there does come that natural point where you need to pay the bills. So I agree with you totally. I think that it's not impossible, but it's incredibly difficult to be able to balance the two things.
It's not impossible. You're right. But I lived it. I know that when you have something to do at work and you're taking a salary from somebody, that takes precedent. So no matter what you're doing on the side, you have to stop what you're doing and you have to do overtime for your boss, or you're going to get fired. So if you're dependent on that income from that corporate job, that is the number one thing. And when you're starting a business, if that's not the number one thing, your customers are going to recognize the fact that you're not making them the priority. And it's really hard to build something, worth promoting if it's not your number one priority and your customers don't believe in you. So yeah, just if you're a young college student and you're about to graduate, I mean, this is the perfect time of year. There's a lot of kids graduating right now. If you want to be an entrepreneur, don't wait. Just go for it now. If it's in your heart, then don't wait.
Just do it. Screw it. Just do it, as Richard Branson always says.
Screw it. Just do it. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for spending time with us today, joining up the dots. I've really loved talking to you today. And I really love the idea of your company. And I'm sure, as I said before, it's going to go on to enormous success, because there's so many people out there that don't really understand social media, don't really have the time or the passion to follow it through. So I think you certainly have tapped into something which is going to be, mightily successful. So please come back again when you have more dots to join up and you have more successes to share with us, because I believe the only way to build our futures is by connecting our past. But before I go, how do people connect with you?
I'm on Twitter at Chris Mance, and you can also go to nichevertising.com, and that's NICHE Vertising. So I'm always on Twitter, though. I'm a Twitter junkie. That's my favorite social network. So the best way is to just send me at message and just say what's up at Chris Mance on Twitter.
If everybody tweets you, this is what I'm going to ask the audience to do. Everyone tweets him, so his ding just becomes a ding. And
oh man, that would make my day.
You turn it off. You go mentally insane. We could bring you to your knees, Chris.
Oh man, that would be a sight to see, because it hasn't happened yet. my wife yells at me because I'm always checking my notifications. So maybe if I got, this outrageous number, it would change the way I feel about it, and my wife would be happy. So hopefully you guys can make me change that behavior and make my wife love you for it.
That's a challenge that we're going to set out to do. Chris Mance, thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I loved it.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice that every successful entrepreneur practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.